Hi, everyone. Welcome to Soul Work Wednesday. Welcome back to the space. It's been a couple of weeks. I hope you are all doing well. We are going to take a moment to reassess and to take notice and to take pause here together to just create some awareness and some consciousness around our life and our experience and just really noticing what's showing up for ourselves today. So, happy September. It's It's always an interesting time of year because there's almost like this quickening that occurs. The energy shifts, the air shifts. And I'm not sure if you've noticed that shift yet, but it started about the middle of August and it's been so hot here. So even though there was an energy air shift, it was very hard to sort of feel it here just because, we're boiling. We're still in 100 plus degree temperatures. So but there is definitely something happening. And so we want to start to notice how the air quality or how the quality of how the air is moving really is shifting and how there is a little more, I would say upheaval or, potentially overwhelm, potentially anxiety, potentially forgetfulness. All of these are the signs of the air and space in our constitution being out of balance. And so we're in Vata season, we're moving into Vata season. And there's a dryness to the season, there's a quickening to the season, there's again that like almost like feeling of being uprooted and like there's like an up and the energy moves up. And this is the time of new beginnings. So this moment post Labor Day is always um, usually that whole idea of, back to school. My kids have been back in school 3 weeks now, but for most of the country or some of the country, I guess more, it depends on where we live, right? Um, there's that back to school thing happening, and even if it's not happening right now, the energy of that is very present. So it's like a new birth or a rebirth or um, a new beginning or an awakening. So this is a very much like a fresh start moment. And so when we pause here, can we start to notice and navigate, what am I going to keep, right? What's working? What's really nourishing? What is supporting me? What is holding me? What is creating um, some definition and some boundary that is supportive and helpful and constructive? And then are there things that maybe need to go? It's always so interesting because that ritual and that routine starts, this time of year. And again, like I said, I've been in it for almost 3 weeks now, so it's kind of nice. But and I definitely wasn't ready when it started. Like this feels like the time. But I'm up by 5:30 because I'm out of the house every morning at around 6:15 to take my kids to school because they have sports. And so there's this whole rhythm that has shifted and this whole ritual that comes into play, and it's so valuable. So for those of you that don't have the construct of kids in school or having to be up for work really early or whatever it is that you sort of like revolve your life around, then you're going to have to create that for yourself, because that rhythm and that ritual and that routine is going to give you connection. It's going to create this sense of being grounded and steady and supported. And so as this time of year sort of like shows up, and things lift, and I want you to notice, if you are you feeling that uplift. Some of you feel light, some of you feel like, oh gosh, thank goodness that this is the shift happening. I needed some lightness. The summer heat has been, so almost like claustrophobic and suffocating. And so, I needed this pickup. I needed the shift in the air, and for some of you, the temperature. I've heard it's like beautiful in other places right now. So, noticing how that takes form. But as things lighten up, the things that are going to show up are being more forgetful and not being as orderly or connected to the the steadiness of the ground. So we want to find ways to ground. We want to find ways to ritualize our life. And so, whatever that means for you, and however you can renegotiate your life and your schedule and your routine, that may be helpful. It might be something to do. Take out the planner, make a list of what you want to accomplish. Take out, like, what do you want your day to look like when you visualize and pause in the moment? Like, what do I want my life, my daily life, my daily unfolding to be. So at the end of the day, you feel like, oh yeah, that was good. I did the things that I wanted to do, and maybe we don't get to all of them, but there's some stability in that rhythm, and so it creates a container. And when we create a container, we create access to ourselves, and we want access because this is where we are going to decide how to nourish ourselves, what we need. So we want to stay really connected to how we move about our life and how we move through the world and what we're doing with our time and where we're focusing our attention and our energy, because all of those things matter. And the last time we were together, we were talking about how we use our voice to, to show up in the world, and how what we say has meaning and it creates an imprint and it matters. And so we want to make sure we're speaking from a real space of connection to that autonomy and our authenticity and our authority. And so, this is just another way. This is more of like a physical outward way. Like, how am I going to line up my day so that I have access to this connection to myself, so then I can speak from that space and act from that space and move from that space and live from that space. So as we pause here today, I want to really pay attention to this idea of receiving yourself. So I use those words a lot, right? Or having access to ourselves. And what does that mean? It means that life and the way we have been living, the way we were raised, the way we live in a society, the way we are imprinted by our cultural norms, the way we are imprinted by those societal norms, they are showing up in how we engage. They are showing up in how we perceive how we should be. Okay. So there is no how we should be. Okay. The how we should be is who we are. And so on some level, we think we know who we are, right? We walk through the world, we're adults, we're like, oh yeah, well, this is who I am. But we are often so encapsulated and so concealed from our own true self because of all of those things we grew up in, all those constructs of, life and reality and society and culture and, all of the biases that exist. And on top of that, this intense norm to be perfect, which is not ever real because there's no such thing. Or there is such thing, but you only can be perfectly you and nothing more and nothing else. And that's enough. And so that enoughness in being exactly who we are. And so when we start to strip down, and I don't mean clothing, I mean when we strip ourselves of all of the ways our experience has almost been infringed upon, right? How nurture has somehow coated over nature. Okay. And really we're both, right? We're a byproduct of both nurture and nature. And so when we start to feel in to have real access to our experience, it's well, how do I really feel? And what do I really want? And what do I need? And not how do I keep the peace, not how do I show up to make sure everybody's okay, not what do I say to make sure that people are okay with what I say, but how do I speak from real connection, real authenticity, real autonomy, and real presence. And so that is the invitation, The invitation is into your presence. The invitation is into your deep knowing, into this deep resource. And as things shift and they churn, and as things kind of move up energetically, we're going to want to get more connected to the space. So feel your pelvis settle wherever you are, and feel that anchor down through your sitting bones. And then feel that tone and lift of the belly. And if you're like, what are you talking about in my sitting bones? I just want you to be even on the left and right side of your body. And then feel the slope, the back of your pelvis settle, and tone and lift the belly, lift the heart, breathe across the collarbones. Front ribs float into the back ribs so that we plug into that solar plexus, the power center. And then just start to feel the rise and fall of your breath. And maybe you close your eyes, and I'm feeling definitely compelled and called to close my eyes pretty quickly. You do not have to close your eyes. You can keep your eyes open. There is no pressure to do that. Again, ask yourself, what do I need right now? For me, my eyes naturally just want to close. And so I'm at ease there. I can soften here. It blocks out that visual piece. I can turn my gaze inward. And so the invitation here is, even if your eyes are open, we can turn our gaze inward. And so we turn our gaze to our own presence, to our own heart. And maybe you can even feel the beating of your own heart, and maybe you feel the rhythm of your breath. And that rhythm and that ritual that happens without us having to really do anything, fortunately, is there for you to connect to. So when we can connect to the thing that is already in rhythm, we have that baseline. That's your ground. I'm connected to the rise and the fall of my breath, and I am connected to the beat of my heart. And I presently have my hands on my solar plexus, so in that spot above the navel, right where the ribs split. So we can also connect to our power here, our power source there in the solar plexus, that fire center of the body. Air and space live in the heart and the throat as far as the energy centers go. And so just feeling into those spots, noticing if they feel maybe a little more present, or maybe you feel a little more movement here or some lightness. Maybe you feel more open. Maybe you don't. So just noticing. When we pause here to assess what is present for us, we get to turn away from those constructs. We get to turn away from the way we were maybe, raised or formed, and the way society held us, and the way those cultural norms shaped us. And we turn the lens towards our own heart and go, what is really happening in here? What is truly present for me? What happens when I peel away all of this stuff, all of these roles I play in my life, all of these different things I have to be for other people? And when I turn into this space, who am I? Can I receive this part of me unencumbered? And it's not easy, right? I mean, it's very hard to disconnect from that reality. And it's not that I want you to disconnect from reality. I just want you to turn the lens inward so you can really feel yourself and hear yourself and listen deeply to what you need. Because in order to have ourselves, we need to be able to see ourselves. we need to know what we need, because that is the space where we can show up for ourselves fully. We can show up in that need. We can show up by creating the ritual and the routine. We can show up by, saying no, creating boundaries, saying, inviting some in and saying no to others, because some are toxic and others are nourishing, supportive, and regenerative. So, what are we choosing? How are we choosing? And as you breathe into the space of your own heart, what's going to come up, like, oh, well, I can't, release that obligation, or I can't release that friend, or I can't release that, part of my life, because notice what the because is. What is the reason? And then pull back into yourself and show up and say, oh, I'm doing that for X, I'm doing that for Y, I'm doing that for Z. And then it's like, okay, what part of that is actually not serving anyone? And when you plug back in, then how do you want to navigate? How do you want to engage? How do you want to move forward? Because our life is really the consequence of so many micro choices, and sometimes no choice at all, right? And I'm not saying that we've created every single experience we've had. Some things we're co creating, we are weaving into what is being offered. So I don't want you to think I am, especially if something tragic and horrific has occurred. I don't ever want you to think that, you made that happen necessarily. Some things just happen. So breathe into that. There's also a huge unknown that we have to play in and live in, because we can't control everything. So this is a place where we're truly holding paradox. We can do all the right things, we can do the actions, we can do the things that we think are going to support the consequence, or the things that are going to create what we are visualizing, or what we're dreaming, or what we're wishing for. But it doesn't mean it's always going to work out the way we think. And that's okay. That's the unknown. But we do what we can moment to moment to nourish ourselves and to support ourselves, and to live from our truth, to live from that deep connection. Draw your hands into prayer in front of your heart, honoring the space you hold for yourself, honoring your willingness to be present and to take this time, and gently bow your head to your heart and to your body, to your mind, to this resource you hold, to staying connected to the space and to staying connected to the questions. Namaste. Thank you all so much for being with me. I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.